Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Garcia. I am 34 years old, and this is the story of how a glitched plane ticket turned into the biggest business takeover of my life. 3 weeks. That's all it took for everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and my own worth to flip upside down. When the Harringtons left me standing alone at LAX International Airport after I'd paid $42,500 for their dream vacation in Europe, they genuinely believed they were putting me back in my place. What they actually did was hand me the keys to everything they'd built. They just didn't realize it yet. When they came home, sunburned, laughing, and ready to unveil their $68 million flagship development, they found me in the VIP section with a man they severely underestimated. The moment they announced, in front of 200 guests, that I wasn't real family and had no right to any Harrington inheritance, was the exact moment they locked in their own downfall. Because the man holding my hand? He'd already signed the papers to control their entire empire. Before we dive into what happened at that glittering launch night, please take a second to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy stories where dignity wins and entitlement collapses under its own weight. And I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel and how many of us are quietly surviving the same storms. Now, let me take you back to that morning at LAX, when I still believed I was about to have the family vacation of my dreams. The morning of June 15th felt almost unreal. I'd been awake since 4 a.m., checking everyone's passports for the third time, organizing the printed itineraries and travel documents I'd carefully prepared over the past 3 months. Our ride to LAX was scheduled for 6 a.m. sharp. I wanted to get there early, handle check-in for all 5 of us, and make sure no one had to stress about anything. Lily, my younger sister on paper, had texted me around midnight. "Can you bring an extra phone charger? I keep losing mine." Of course I packed it. I always did. Standing in the check-in line at Terminal 5, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Hope. Not the cautious, guarded kind. Real, warm, full-body happiness about a family moment. For once, we were about to do something together that wasn't about money troubles, legal documents, or some new drama. I had made this happen. When Diana, my adoptive mother, had sighed one night about wanting to see Barcelona before she turned 60, I'd jumped in right away. "I'll cover the whole thing," I'd said. "Flights, hotels, tours, all of it." She'd protested half-heartedly, but I'd already started running the numbers. $42,500. Business-style seats, 5-star hotels, curated tours, private shuttles, every detail polished. "Wow, Maya, you're such a blessing," Diana had said when I showed her the glossy PDF itinerary I'd put together. Those 5 words had meant everything to me. After 15 years as the adopted daughter, the girl who moved into their home after both my birth parents died in a car accident, hearing anything that sounded like gratitude from her felt like sunlight through a crack in a locked room. This wasn't the first time I'd stepped in. Over the past decade, I'd quietly paid off the remaining $260,000 on the Harrington family home. When the economy squeezed Charles's construction business, I covered Lily's $95,000 in student loans without being asked. When Diana needed a new car after her accident, I bought her a $62,000 Lexus hybrid SUV and pretended it was a great lease deal so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. My salary as Vice President of Corporate Strategy at Bayshore Equity Partners made it all possible, but I never kept score. I told myself that's not what family does. At the counter, I slid all 5 passports to the agent with a little flourish. "The Harrington family is traveling together," I said, and I meant it. Lily appeared beside me, blonde hair perfectly styled even at that hour. There was something in her eyes I couldn't quite decode, a flicker of amusement maybe, or pity. "Maya, can I talk to you for a second?" she asked, already tugging me a step away while the agent typed. That should have been my warning. But I was too wrapped up in the fantasy, too willing to believe we were finally on the same side. "This is so awkward," Lily said. lowering her voice into that faux concerned tone she used on people she secretly looked down on. She pulled up something on her phone, her expression twisting theatrically. "I don't know how this happened, but there's a problem with your ticket." My stomach dipped. "What are you talking about? I booked everything together." I held up my own phone. "I have all 5 confirmations right here." She shook her head, tapping the screen with her manicured nail. "No, look. Last week when I was organizing seats and pre-selecting meals, I must have— Ugh, Maya, I'm so sorry. I think I accidentally canceled your seat. The system must have glitched." The check-in agent called, "Next, please." My feet felt glued to the floor. The lights overhead were suddenly too bright, the airport noise blurred into a dull roar. Diana rolled up with her designer carry-on, glancing between us with a practiced frown. "What's going on?" she asked. "We need to get through security." "It's Maya's ticket," Lily said, eyes opening wider with perfect fake panic. "It's not in the system. I think I accidentally canceled it when I was changing our meal choices." "Oh dear," Diana murmured, but her voice sounded like she was reading lines from a script. "Can't we just buy another seat?" I asked, clinging to reason. The agent checked again. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This flight is completely full. Been sold out for weeks. The next available seat to Barcelona is Thursday." 4 days later. By then, they'd be halfway through tapas and cathedrals and rooftop photos without me. "Maya, you understand, right?" Lily squeezed my arm, just a little too hard. "We can't all miss the flight. The hotel is non-refundable. The tours are prepaid. You can always join us later." I looked at them. Diana avoiding my gaze. My cousin Evan suddenly very deeply invested in whatever was on his phone. Lily with that tiny, satisfied smile she assumed I couldn't see. In the middle of the crowded terminal, with travelers rushing past and announcements echoing overhead, I felt that same 8-year-old version of myself again. The one who'd sat in a foster care office, clutching a garbage bag of clothes, waiting to find out if anyone wanted her. "Go," I heard myself say. "Don't miss your flight." Lily hugged me quickly, her body already turned away. "You're the best, Maya. We'll stream you from the Sagrada Familia." I watched them walk toward security, their laughter carried back in broken pieces by the air conditioning. Not once did any of them turn to look at me. The rideshare home was the longest 40 minutes of my life. I stared at my phone while the Harrington-Barcelona trip chat lit up with photos from the gate. Lily clinking glasses of sparkling wine. Diana posting a shot of her reclining seat in signature premiere class. Evan joking about extra legroom now that one of the kids wasn't going. Not one message asking if I was okay. That night, I sat alone in my Santa Monica apartment, the quiet, sunlit space I'd bought mostly to escape the constant expectations in the Harrington house. Silence pressed in on me, the kind you usually pay a lot of money to avoid. My phone buzzed with a memory notification from Friend Connect. 1 year ago today, Harrington Family Thanksgiving. I opened it. There they were, 12 people around a beautifully set table. I wasn't in the photo. Of course I wasn't. I had been the one taking it. The pattern had always been there. At Lily's graduation, I'd been introduced as a close family friend who's been very generous. When Charles's mother passed, the obituary listed every grandchild except me. "It would just be confusing to explain," Diana had said lightly. "You understand, don't you?" I did understand. I was the walking safety net. The polite, grateful, high-earning outsider with their last name on paper, but not in their hearts. My degree from Stanford Graduate School of Business, earned while working full-time to support myself, never made it to the mantle. When I became the youngest vice president of corporate strategy in Bayshore's history, Diana's response was, "That's nice, dear. Speaking of money, do you think you can help with Lily's car insurance?" Even my birth name had become a ghost. Legally, I was a Harrington. Emotionally, I was the live-in sponsor. I thought about the $260,000 home payoff, the $95,000 in loans, the $62,000 SUV, the $6 2 million I'd poured into their flagship project without blinking because I believed I was investing in us. Family doesn't keep receipts, I told myself. But that night, sitting alone in an apartment I'd paid for in full, I opened a spreadsheet, and for the first time, I did. 3 days into their trip, I muted the Barcelona chat. I didn't stop working, though. At my office at Bayshore Equity Partners, I pulled up the digital files for the Harrington Crest Pavilion, a $68 million mixed-use development in the Silverwood district, just outside downtown Los Angeles. Diana called it her legacy. Lily called it her big step into the serious business world. It was the Harringtons' attempt at building a real estate dynasty. They'd needed help structuring the original financing 2 years earlier, and they'd turned to me, the inconvenient charity case who happened to specialize in complex capital stacks. They didn't know I'd kept copies of everything. My name wasn't on the Harrington Family Trust, but it was on several key documents they'd signed without fully understanding what they were agreeing to. The numbers I was staring at were bad. Bad in a way most people wouldn't notice, but someone in my role at Bayshore would see in seconds. There was a vulnerability in their financing structure that might as well have been a countdown timer. My phone rang. Unknown number. "This is Maya," I answered. "Ms. Garcia," a warm, composed voice replied. "This is Nathaniel Rhodes. I believe we met briefly at the Bayshore Summit last fall." Nathaniel Rhodes, founder and CEO of Rhodes Capital Group, the man whose real estate portfolio covered half of downtown Los Angeles and a good chunk of the West Coast besides. We'd chatted for maybe 5 minutes at a networking dinner, long enough for him to make a dry joke about debt covenants and for me to notice how he listened more than he spoke. "I'm calling about an investment opportunity that I think might interest you," he continued. "Specifically, a project called Harrington Crest Pavilion." I froze, eyes drifting to the folder open on my screen. "I heard through the grapevine that you structured the original deal," Nathaniel said. "It's smart work, flawed but smart. I'd love to buy you coffee and talk about it." "I'm available all week," I said. "My family is in Europe." "Without you," he noted gently. "Yes," I said, feeling the word land in my chest. "Well," he replied, "from what I've seen, that's their loss, not yours. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. The Waldorf Beverly Hills?" I looked at the photos on my desk, the ones from family milestones where I always seemed to be a half step out of frame. "I'll be there," I said. "If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own house, type "me too" in the comments. Your stories don't just make me feel less alone, they remind me why I'm telling mine at all." I read every single one. Back to the story. The meeting with Nathaniel didn't go the way I expected. If anything, it was worse and better at the same time. At the Waldorf Beverly Hills, sitting across from him with a cup of coffee I barely tasted, I watched him slide a folder across the table. "Maya, I'll be direct," he said. "Your family is about to lose everything tied to Harrington Crest." I opened the folder. "The project is leveraged against loans they cannot possibly repay without their primary investor," Nathaniel explained calmly. "That investor is pulling out next week. Inside were financial statements, email printouts, redlined contracts, and one name highlighted in yellow ink. Lily Harrington, Managing Director." Nathaniel continued. "Your sister has been siphoning money from the project for over a year now. Small amounts at first, but in the last 6 months it's added up to about $2.6 million in bogus vendor payments routed through fake entities she controls." My fingers tightened around the pages. There it was, transaction after transaction. Ghost companies, fake invoices, forged signatures. While I'd been paying for trips and tuition and safety nets, Lily had been stealing from the one project that carried my money and my expertise. "The primary investor discovered this pattern yesterday," Nathaniel said. "They intend to go public with it at the launch gala, unless—" "Unless what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Unless someone with deeper pockets steps in to cover the losses and take over the project," he said. "Rhodes Capital is prepared to do that, cleanly, legally, and very publicly." He regarded me for a quiet moment. I've been watching your career for years, Maya. You're good, very good. And you've been financially propping up people who don't seem to value you. He paused. I'm offering you a choice. Let them implode on their own. Or help me acquire the project in a way that protects the investors, salvages what matters, and gives you 30% equity in Rhodes Capital Group in the process. I blinked. 30%? I repeated. More than they ever would have left you, he said simply. I thought of the $6.2 million of my own savings tied up in Harrington Crest. Money that would vaporize when the scandal hit. Money that had bought my seat at their table, apparently a folding chair near the exit. If I say yes, I asked slowly, they can never know it was me. Not until the launch. Not until they've said out loud what I already know they believe. Nathaniel smiled just a little. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. I need someone they trust, someone close enough to shepherd the legal process through, someone they'd never suspect because they've spent years underestimating her. I exhaled. I'm in. The confrontation came faster than I expected. That night, Lily called from some shimmering European hotel room, the sound of clinking glasses in the background. Did you meet with Nathaniel Rhodes? She demanded. My heart sped up, but my voice stayed level. I have a lot of meetings, Lily. That's my job. Don't play dumb. Someone saw you at the Waldorf. He's been sniffing around Harrington Crest. If you said anything— About what? I asked. No one told me you were even back from Barcelona. I had to find out from Pickstream. We got back yesterday, she said flatly. No apology, just an update. Look, we need you at the launch. Investors want to see a united family. The audacity burned. They'd left me at LAX as if I were extra luggage, and now they wanted my face on their stage. I don't think so, I said carefully. Excuse me? Her tone sharpened instantly. I'm not coming, Lily. You ungrateful— She cut herself off. Maya, you owe us. We took you in. We gave you our name, a home, everything. And I gave you $260,000 for the house, I replied. $95,000 for your loans. $42,500 for a trip you conveniently forgot to include me in. $62,000 for Mom's car. And $6.2 million for Harrington Crest. You offered that money, she snapped, because I thought I was family. You're not, she started, then caught herself, but the damage was done. I'm not what, Lily? I asked quietly. Not blood? Not real? Silence stretched so long I could hear her breathing. The launch is in 2 weeks, she finally said. If you don't show up, don't bother coming to anything else. Ever. I understand. And that money you mentioned? She added, voice turning icy. Call it rent for 18 years of charity. The line went dead. I stared at the email from Nathaniel's team waiting in my inbox. Draft agreements, projected equity breakdowns, the path out of the Harrington gravity well. One signature, and I'd be a major partner at Rhodes Capital Group. One signature, and the Harringtons would lose everything they'd built on my back. I picked up the pen. Diana's call came at midnight, just as I knew it would. Lily had deployed the big guns. Maya, sweetheart, her voice sugar-coated the word. Lily told me about your little meltdown. It wasn't a meltdown, I said. It was clarity. You're being dramatic, she murmured. We forgot your plane ticket. It was a mistake. Was it? I asked. A pause. What are you implying? I'm done funding people who treat me like a charitable tax write-off with a pulse, I said. How dare you talk to me like that, she snapped. Did Lily tell you she thinks you've been talking to Rhodes about the project? I talk to a lot of people. It's part of my job, I said. Here's something you might want to look into instead. Vendor payments from Harrington Crest to shell corporations that don't exist. That's a vicious lie. Is it? Go through the books, Diana. You'll find about $2.6 million that's gone, paid to companies with no actual operations. Even if that were true, which it's not, that is family business, she hissed. You are not family. She stopped, as if she could pull the words back, but they were out. Lily made that clear too. I said softly. You're twisting things. We love you, but you need to understand your place. Charles is gone. The Harrington legacy belongs to blood. She exhaled. The only reason you're even in this conversation is because we're generous. My money was good enough for that legacy, I said. $6.2 million of it. That was a gift. You can't take it back. I'm not taking anything back, I replied. I'm just done giving. If you don't show up to the launch, she warned, you're out. No holidays, no birthdays, no Harrington events. And everyone will know you abandoned the family that saved you. I looked at the Rhodes contract spread across my desk, at the line where my signature would go. Diana, can I ask you something? I said. What? In all the years I lived under your roof, sat at your table, paid your bills, did you ever actually love me? Not what I did for you, me. The silence on the line felt like a verdict. Love doesn't pay bills, Maya, she said at last, her voice like ice. You, of all people, should know that. When the call ended, I signed every document Nathaniel had sent. Then I blocked every Harrington number in my phone. The war had officially started. They just didn't know I'd already won. 2 days before the launch, I met Nathaniel at Rhodes Capital's headquarters, a glass tower overlooking downtown Los Angeles. The city stretched out in front of us, all light and movement and possibilities, as if to remind me there were worlds outside one broken family. The primary investor pulled out this morning, Nathaniel said. Your family has 48 hours to replace $27 million in funding, or the project goes into default. They'll never find that kind of money in 2 days, I said. No, he agreed. But Rhodes Capital can. He slid another set of documents across his desk. This is the acquisition agreement. We purchase Harrington Crest at adjusted market value, which, given the imminent scandal, is significantly reduced. We're offering $20. $5 million for a $68 million project. I skimmed the pages. And here's the part I'm particularly fond of, he added. We present this at their event. They'll be forced to sign publicly, in front of every investor they invited to celebrate their legacy, unless they prefer to announce bankruptcy on stage. There's one problem, I said. They told me not to come. You're not going as the awkward adopted girl they like to claim, Nathaniel said. You're coming as my guest. My strategic advisor, the woman who helped me construct this acquisition. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Maya, please. We need that 6.2M back, just for a few weeks. I'm begging you. L. I showed Nathaniel. He shook his head, almost amused. Begging you for money, they insisted, was rent, Harrington logic. What should I say? I asked. Whatever you want, he replied. Or nothing at all. I thought of 8-year-old me in that foster office, willing to shrink herself into any shape someone wanted, as long as they kept her. Then I looked at 34-year-old me, sitting in a boardroom with a man who saw my abilities more clearly than my own family ever had. Nothing, I said. Silence is my answer now. The morning of the launch, while reviewing one last stack of documents, I made a discovery that changed everything again. Buried deep in the original investment structure I'd drafted 2 years earlier, Clause 12A, tucked in the dense language like a quiet insurance policy, was a line I'd added after a late-night phone call with Charles. In the event of fiduciary misconduct by any managing partner, their shares automatically transfer to the largest individual investor. I checked the cap table. That investor was me. I called Nathaniel immediately. You need to see this, I said. 20 minutes later, he was laughing so hard his assistant stepped in to make sure he was okay. Maya, do you realize what this means? He asked. That technically I already own Lily's 40%, I said, which makes me the majority owner. The acquisition isn't necessary, he said. You could walk in and take the project today. But, his smile turned sharp. They don't know that. And if we handle this carefully, they'll sign away their remaining shares thinking they're saving themselves when all they're really doing is signing them to you. We spent the next hour reworking the paperwork. Rhodes Capital would still appear as the savior firm stepping in. My name would live quietly in the subsidiary documents, the ones no one on their side would bother to read. Oh, Nathaniel added as we wrapped up. One last thing. I want you to wear something unforgettable tonight. Something that says you're not here as anyone's charity case. I have the perfect dress, I said. An Oscar de la Renta gown I bought for Charles's funeral. Diana said it was too much for a family event. Sounds perfect for a different kind of family event, he said. And on stage, when I introduce you, how would you like to be announced? For years, I'd been introduced as an afterthought, a plus one, a very generous family friend. Call me what I actually am, I said. The woman who owns the Harrington legacy. Have you ever had that moment where every scattered piece suddenly clicks into place? That quiet, shocking realization that you've been holding the winning card the whole time? If you've lived that, tell me in the comments. Your stories help other people realize they might be holding that card too. Now the night everything came crashing down. The Four Seasons Grand Ballroom in Beverly Hills glittered with people who measured status in square footage and stock prices. 200 of California's wealthiest investors and socialites moved under crystal chandeliers, sipping champagne, trading deals, and praising the Harringtons' vision. I arrived 30 minutes after the program had started, timing it so that my entrance cut straight through the comfortable story they'd written about themselves. As Nathaniel and I walked through the main doors, Diana was already on stage, giving her welcome speech. She spotted me instantly. How could she not? I wore the black Oscar de la Renta gown she'd once called too dramatic for family. In a room full of tasteful neutrals, it was a statement. Lily's face blanched. Standing near the stage in her own designer dress, she looked stunning in the way very fragile things sometimes do right before they break. I saw her lean toward Diana, hissing something into the microphone's dead zone. Diana wobbled for half a second, then pasted on her public smile. Ladies and gentlemen, she continued, her voice tight around the edges. Welcome to the premiere of Harrington Crest Pavilion. This project represents everything our family stands for: heritage, stability, and exclusivity. I almost laughed. Heritage, stability, exclusivity, words she'd used to justify cutting me out years ago. Nathaniel guided me to the front row VIP seats. Heads turned, whispers rose. Is that? Who's she with Rhodes? Wasn't she the one they raised? Diana shifted on stage, clearly thrown by how many eyes had shifted from her to us. And as I was saying, she continued, the Harrington family has always been very selective about who we bring into our inner circle. Bloodlines and loyalty matter. Not everyone who passes through our lives is truly family. Tonight, we celebrate with those who've earned their place. Her gaze locked with mine on the last sentence. My hands went still in my lap. Lily stepped forward and took the mic. Before we continue, she said, her voice trembling just enough to look sincere, I want to address something. There's a woman here tonight who doesn't belong at this event. The room hushed instantly. Maya Garcia might use our last name, Lily said, but she is not a Harrington heir. She's not blood. She's not family. She's someone we graciously took in and who's now trying to insert herself where she has no place. Security began moving toward me. It took everything in me not to laugh. Nathaniel rose before they reached us. Actually, Ms. Harrington, he said, his voice carrying clearly, she's with me. The guard stopped mid-step. Nathaniel Rhodes did not bring guests you escorted anywhere. Nathaniel, Diana said, her composure cracking, we weren't expecting you tonight. Clearly, he replied, which is surprising, given that Rhodes Capital Group is about to be very involved with Harrington Crest Pavilion. A murmur rippled through the crowd. What are you talking about? Lily demanded. Perhaps you should ask your accountants about the $27 million gap in your funding, Nathaniel said lightly, or the $2.6 million in vendor payments made to companies that don't exist. I'm sure the investors here this evening would be very interested in those details. Gasps, heads turned, phones appeared, already recording. That's slander! Lily shrieked. Maya, you vindictive! Ms. Harrington, Nathaniel cut in, turning the room's attention back to him with a single sharp look. Maya hasn't said a word, I'm the one speaking, though I am curious why you assumed she was involved. Lily had just admitted, on microphone, that she knew about the embezzlement. The trap snapped shut by itself. "Security, remove them!" Diana ordered, pointing at us. "This is our event." The security chief hesitated. "Ma'am, Mr. Rhodes is a major shareholder in this hotel. We can't." "I am a Harrington!" Lily screamed. "This is my launch! She is nobody! She's a charity case!" "A charity case who paid off your mortgage," I said, finally standing. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "Who covered your loans, Lily? Who invested $6.2 million in this project while you were bleeding $2.6 million out of it?" "You can't prove anything," she said, but she looked scared now. I pulled out my phone and tapped into the ballroom's AV system, a feature I'd insisted on adding when I'd originally helped book the venue. The giant screens behind them flickered. The architectural renderings of Harrington Crest dissolved, replaced by transaction histories, bank records, and copies of Lily's forged signatures and shell company registrations. "I don't have to prove it," I said quietly. "You already did." The room was dead silent except for the clicking of camera shutters. "Turn it off!" Diana screamed. "Turn it off now!" No one moved. Nathaniel walked up the steps to the stage with the steady confidence of someone who owned the room. And, in a way, he did. The crowd parted for him instinctively. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, taking the microphone, "I apologize for the interruption. Transparency, however, is non-negotiable in honest business. Rhodes Capital Group has been monitoring the Harrington Crest Pavilion situation for some time." He clicked a remote. The screens shifted to show Rhodes Capital's logo beside acquisition documents. "As of 9 a.m. this morning, Rhodes Capital has acquired all outstanding debts and liens connected to Harrington Crest. Practically speaking, we control the asset." The room erupted. "You can't do this," Diana cried. "We have contracts." "With a morality provision," Nathaniel said smoothly. "Clause 12A to be precise. In the event of fiduciary misconduct by any managing partner, their shares automatically transfer to the largest individual investor." He paused. "Would you like to know who that investor is?" Lily shook her head slowly, as if she could push back reality. No, it can't be." "Maya Garcia," Nathaniel announced, gesturing toward me, "who personally invested $6.2 million and holds 31% of the project. Combined with the 40% that transferred from Ms. Harrington pursuant to her misconduct, Maya now owns 71% of Harrington Crest Pavilion." The ballroom exploded in sound. Reporters surged forward. Investors started yelling questions. Diana sank into a chair as if someone had pulled the bones from her body. "But she's not even family," Lily shouted, pointing at me. "Tell them, Mom. Tell them she's nobody." Nathaniel smiled without warmth. "She's somebody now," he said. "In fact, she's your landlord, your employer, and the owner of everything you thought was untouchable." He turned to me. "Ms. Garcia," he said, "would you like to address your investors?" I walked onto that stage with 15 years of swallowed humiliation in my spine, holding me upright. "Good evening," I said into the microphone. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "I know many of you are confused, so let me clarify who I am." I looked at Diana and Lily. "Yes, I came into the Harrington home as a child who needed somewhere to go after my parents died," I said. "They gave me a roof. I gave them $260,000 for that roof. They gave me their last name on paper. I gave them $95,000 for school, $62,000 for transportation, $42,500 for the vacation that left me standing at LAX, and $6.2 million for this project." Someone near the front actually said, "Oh my God," under their breath. "You taught me something," I continued, still looking at them. "You taught me that love doesn't pay bills. You were right, but respect does, integrity does, and those are currencies you never learned how to hold." The room was so quiet you could hear ice settling in glasses. "Effective immediately," I said. Lily Harrington is removed from any role or authority connected to Harrington Crest Pavilion. Diana Harrington's consulting agreements are terminated. All Harrington family members are banned from the property. You can't do this, Diana whispered. Charles would be spinning in his grave. Actually, I said softly, Charles helped me write Clause 12A. Her head snapped up. You're lying! I pulled a folded letter from my clutch, the ink slightly faded. Should I read what he wrote? I asked. About how he knew you and Lily planned to cut me out of everything? About how he insisted we build a protection into the structure? Nathaniel took the mic again. And there's more, he said. Maya isn't just the majority owner of Harrington Crest Pavilion. She is also the newest equity partner at Rhodes Capital Group, holding 30% of our overall portfolio. Every business person in the room mentally did the math. Rhodes Capital Group was a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse. 30% made me one of the wealthiest women in California overnight. That's impossible, Lily said weakly. She's just good with spreadsheets. The youngest VP of corporate strategy in Bayshore Equity's history, Nathaniel corrected. Stanford Graduate School of Business honors graduate. The strategist who quietly held your family together while you were busy bleeding it dry. Questions flew at me. Will you be renaming the project? Prospect Weekly will want a cover story. The Financial Ledger needs a comment on Rhodes Capital's expansion. Marketline News wants to know if there are more acquisitions coming. But my attention was locked on the two women who'd spent 15 years reminding me how lucky I was to be under their roof. The saddest part, I said into the mic, is that I would have given you everything, freely, lovingly, for as long as I lived. All you had to do was actually make me family. Not in legal documents, in your hearts. I held up the stack of signed papers Nathaniel's legal team had prepared, and they had just signed in their panic. But you chose greed, I said. You chose cruelty. So now you get to live with those choices. Please, Diana said suddenly, tears streaking her makeup. Maya, please, we're sorry. We're family. No, I said, my voice clear and steady. You've told me very clearly what I am and what I'm not. I'm just finally listening. Security moved toward Lily with a box, her desk contents already packed from the Harrington Crest office. You planned this, she said, her voice shaking. You've been planning this for years. No, Lily, I said. You planned this. When you accidentally canceled my ticket, when you laughed at the airport, when you spent my money and called it rent, that was you. Nathaniel's attorney, Melissa Kent, stepped forward with the final documents. Miss Harrington, she said to Diana, this acknowledges the change in ownership and transfers your remaining interest to Maya. If you refuse to sign, we will proceed with criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud. $2.6 million is well within the Federal Financial Crimes Bureau's threshold for felony prosecution. Diana's hand shook as she signed. Lily's signature came next, her tears smudging the ink. With each signature, Melissa said, you relinquish your claim to Harrington Crest Pavilion and its income streams. And the penthouse? Diana asked in a small, broken voice. You have 30 days to vacate, I said. That's more generous than I'm required to be. Where are we supposed to go? She whispered. You could always use some of that Barcelona money to get a rental, I replied. Oh, wait, that was mine too. The room was eating it up. Every second was being captured on phones, already destined to be replayed a million times. Nathaniel lifted a champagne flute. A toast, he said, to Maya Garcia, who just proved that family isn't blood, it's character. The applause rolled over me like a wave. People who had never bothered to learn my name at Harrington gatherings were suddenly eager to shake my hand, slip me their cards, and gush about what a powerful story this would be. But I wasn't done. One more thing, I said, taking the microphone again. The $6.2 million I invested in Harrington Crest? It's not going back to me. Every cent is being donated to the Future Horizons Scholarship Trust to fund education for kids aging out of foster care. The crowd erupted again, this time with real warmth. In the corner, I saw Diana sit down hard, like she'd just realized that this wasn't only about money. It was about the meaning behind the money, the story, the legacy. Lily tried one last time. "Maya, please," she said, voice breaking. "We're sisters." "No," I answered. "We're not. Sisters don't leave each other at airports. Sisters don't call 18 years of survival rent. Sisters don't erase each other from every story." I turned to Nathaniel. "I think we're done here." We walked out together, the crowd parting, cameras flashing, murmurs chasing us all the way to the lobby. Outside, his Aston Martin Vantage waited at the curb, polished and quiet. Before I got in, I felt someone grab my arm. "Diana. You ungrateful little—" "Remove your hand," I said calmly, loud enough for the security guards and a few lingering reporters to hear. "Or we add assault to the list." She let go. "I gave you everything," she hissed. "A home, a name, a family. You gave me a roof in exchange for $6.8 million over 15 years, I replied. You gave me a name you wouldn't put on a Christmas card. You gave me a family that made sure I never forgot I was an outsider." Lily stood beside her, mascara streaked. "What do you want?" she cried. "An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. We're sorry." "I don't want anything from you," I said. "And that is what you never understood. I didn't spend all that money because I owed you. I did it because I loved you. I wanted to belong. You turned that into a transaction." I pulled out one last piece of paper from my clutch. "This is a restraining order," I said. "You come within 500 feet of me, any of my properties, or any roads capital sites I manage, and you will be arrested. All communication goes through lawyers from now on." "After everything we did for you," Diana whispered. I looked right at her. "In 15 years," I said, loud enough for every microphone in range to catch it, "I paid you roughly $25,000 a month for the privilege of being your charity case. So tell me, Diana, who was really saving who?" Nathaniel touched my elbow gently. "The car's waiting," he said. As we drove away, lights from the hotel receding in the rearview mirror, Diana's final words echoed in my mind. "You'll regret this. Family is forever." I turned my head toward the window, watching Los Angeles blur by. "No," I murmured. "Family is a choice. And you chose wrong." The fallout was fast and merciless. By morning, every business site and gossip feed carried some version of the story. Adopted daughter takes over Harrington empire. From charity case to power partner, the Maya Garcia story. Embezzlement, betrayal, and a surprise majority owner at Beverly Hills launch. The Federal Financial Crimes Bureau opened a formal investigation into Lily's activities. Her accounts were frozen. Firms that had been courting her for roles quietly withdrew their offers. No one wanted to touch someone whose name was trending beside the word embezzlement. Diana was forced to resign from the charity boards she'd preened over for decades. The country club revoked her membership after other members complained about reputational risk. Friends who had clinked glasses with her over expensive brunches suddenly stopped returning her messages. Evan reached out once. "Maya, I had no idea they were treating you like that," he said in a voice note. "If I'd known—" "You knew," I said aloud to the empty room as I deleted it. "You just didn't care until it cost you something." Harrington Crest Pavilion was renamed Rhodes Summit Plaza. The portrait of Diana that had once been planned for the lobby was replaced with a photograph of graduates from the Future Horizons Scholarship Trust, foster kids in caps and gowns, smiling like they'd beaten the odds. Within a month, Diana and Lily were living in a small 2-bedroom in a less glamorous part of town. Their luxury cars were repossessed. Their cards were canceled. The Barcelona photos that once filled their timelines now looked like artifacts from a life they'd rented on someone else's dime. The inheritance they'd tried so hard to keep away from me? Charles's estate? Once we dug through the paperwork, we discovered it was mostly debt. Debt I'd unknowingly been helping offset for years. Without my money, the Harrington name didn't buy much. I gave exactly 3 interviews, one to Prospect Weekly, one to the Financial Ledger, and one to a youth empowerment podcast that focused on kids who grew up in foster care. What would you say to someone who feels like they'll never really belong anywhere? The host asked me. You belong to yourself first, I said. No one else gets to define your value. Not a last name, not a bloodline, not a bank account. That episode went viral. Messages flooded in from adoptees, foster kids, people who'd been treated as the charity project in their own family. Their stories broke my heart and strengthened my spine. Meanwhile, the Federal Financial Crimes Bureau dug deeper into Lily's finances. It turned out Harrington Crest wasn't the first time she'd skimmed. Civil suits piled up, criminal charges followed. Her lawyer, a man who'd once helped her structure documents to push me out, dropped her when she couldn't pay. Diana tried to sell a tell-all manuscript about raising an ungrateful adopted child. No reputable publisher would touch it. She launched a crowdfunding page claiming I had stolen her legacy. It collected $387 before the platform shut it down for misrepresentation. Nathaniel and I shared a quiet dinner at the Peninsula Rooftop Grill a few months later. Any regrets? He asked, echoing his question from the night of the launch. One, I admitted. His brows lifted. I regret waiting so long to stop asking them to love me, I said. He smiled slightly. I knew Charles, he said. Before he got sick, he talked about you. I blinked. He never said much to me, not about this. He didn't say it, Nathaniel replied. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out an envelope. He wrote it. Inside was a letter in Charles's unsteady handwriting. My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, it means you finally saw what I always knew. You were never the charity case. They were. Love, Dad. For the first time since the airport, I cried. Not from hurt, but from something that felt a lot like release. 6 months later, Rhodes Summit Plaza was doing better than any of us had projected. I'd restructured tenant agreements to bring in minority-owned businesses, added affordable units alongside the luxury condos, and built mentorship space for Future Horizons scholars right into the design. The Future Horizons Scholarship Trust had already distributed over $2.4 million in grants. I personally mentored 5 young women who'd aged out of foster care, helping them navigate admissions, interviews, and the strange ache of feeling unanchored. They called me their chosen big sister. It meant more than Harrington ever had. Lily eventually pled out and received 5 years in prison with the possibility of reduction for good behavior. Diana visited her once a week, taking buses instead of luxury SUVs to reach the correctional facility. One afternoon, an envelope arrived at my office. No return name, but I recognized the handwriting. Maya, you'll probably throw this away, but I need you to know. We were wrong. I was wrong. Not just about the money or the trip, about everything. You were the only real thing in our fake family. The only one who actually loved us, and we threw you away. I'm sorry. I know it's too late. But I am. Lily. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, become the light you use to find your way out. Over the next 3 years, Nathaniel and I became partners in more than just one project. We co-led several developments that rebuilt old spaces in ways that actually served the communities around them. The financial press dubbed us the duo reshaping the West Coast skyline. We laughed about it over coffee, then went back to our spreadsheets. More importantly, we became the kind of friends who showed up when it mattered, who said hard things gently, who saw each other as more than our resumes. The Harrington name, once whispered approvingly in certain circles, became a cautionary case study in business schools. What happens when entitlement, greed, and cruelty collide with a person who finally refuses to pay the cost? Today, 3 years after that scene at LAX, I stand in my office at Rhodes Capital, floor-to-ceiling windows framing a city I helped reshape. In the distance, I can see Rhodes Summit Plaza catching the late afternoon light, not a monument to revenge, but to something quieter and stronger: resilience. I've learned 3 truths I wish someone had told me when I was 8, sitting in that foster office hoping any family was better than none. First, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. The Harringtons showed me for 15 years that my value was mostly numerical. I just kept resubmitting the same assignment, hoping for a different grade. Second, you cannot buy your way into belonging. All the tuition checks, mortgages, cars, and vacations I covered only taught them I would pay for crumbs. They didn't earn my love, but I let them rent it at a discount. Third, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so full that their absence stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like air. I didn't destroy them. I just stepped out of the role they'd written for me and let consequences catch up. Diana still lives quietly far from chandeliers and charity luncheons. Lily is out, working in a job that doesn't involve handling anyone else's money. They're surviving. Me? I was forced to thrive. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if they'd simply bought me that replacement seat. If they'd insisted I get on that plane, would I still be dropping 6-figure lifelines into their problems? Would I still be waiting at someone else's gate, hoping to be called? In a strange way, leaving me at the airport was the kindest thing they ever did. It ripped off the last layer of denial and set me free. If you're watching this and you've been someone's charity case, someone's ATM, someone's afterthought, hear me. Your worth is not defined by how much you give to people who never give back. Blood doesn't make a family. Choice does. Respect does. Love does. The Harringtons never chose me, so I chose myself. And that made all the difference. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about standing strong when the people who should have protected you become the ones you have to protect yourself from. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to walk away from toxic family. And in the comments, if you feel safe, tell me, have you ever had to cut ties with people who shared your last name? How did you find the strength? Your stories don't just inspire me. They become lifelines for someone else scrolling at 2 a.m., wondering if they're allowed to choose themselves. You are.